Hello. Well, my name is Jerry Elder Jr. and I am the first cousin of Jeffery Lane Hann. I'd like to welcome you to this moment of celebration that we're having here in honor of his life today. Jeffery was one of 9 cousins on the Biddle side of the family. There's the Biddles and the Hanns, and they both married when Aunt Dot and Uncle Haskell both got married. And they made a great union with each other. But there's something about cousins that's pretty neat. Now, right now I am at my home place over in Munford. And the trees behind me here, the picnic tables and the area around meant a lot to our family. And to be a part of this family is a very special thing. Jeffery was one of 3 of the cousins that were born within 7 months with each other. There's Jeffrey, and then there's Russell, and then there's me. Not necessarily in that order, but I was the baby, and I'm the one that was most liked. And so, but whenever we start looking at the life of Jeffery Hann, you know, it's a fun life. What happened here in this old home place, especially around the area of Munford where our Aunt Dot was raised, was nothing strange. It was nothing unique. But it is something that's missed in today's society. And that's a lot of cousins, a lot of families spending time together. I think it's rather ironic that as I filmed this today, you know, we're getting very close, and as you're watching this, this is past the 4th of July. It was a special time for our family. You see, July 1 was our grandmother Newsom's birthday, and July, I think 8th or 9th is Sharon's birthday. Mine pulls up around the 12th, and we just all had a big family time here. Now the picnic table back there, I think about a lot of things that happened on the picnic table. There were watermelon cuttings, there were birthday parties, there was laughter, and I don't know if you could just imagine, but if you could imagine 9 cousins gathered around a picnic table with a watermelon or 2. Your grandmother, your grandfather, your parents, and everybody just loving one another. Then you kind of get a grasp of what our family was like. When I received the news that Jeffery had been killed in a car crash, I can't help but think that I lost a big part of my life, just like a lot of you have. And as tragic as it is, and hurting as it is, those are things that are beyond our control that we can do. You see, death's going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us, and we have all been affected by death in one way or the other. But that's why I think that this today is a celebration of Jeffery's life. So I want to take just a few minutes of your time, and I appreciate you watching, and I'm going to have some talks with the family members and tell you a few things from their aspect. Tell you a few things about the life of Jeffery Hann, which was a life, believe me. I was driving through the city of Huntsville last night on my way down to Munford, Talladega area. And I remember that Jeffery was born right outside of Huntsville in a little town called Hartsville. Now, one of the unique things about Jeffery that you may not know is, you know, Jeffery was always a pretty good-sized guy. But he wasn't when he was born. In fact, I remember the story that my Aunt Dot and Uncle Haskell told me, that when he was born, he might have weighed 4 pounds. And you think about that now, in 1959, a 4-pound baby, just a 4-pound baby surviving in 1959 would have been pretty remarkable. But they didn't have much. You know, they lived in a small little house, and Wayne and Sharon and Shane welcomed in Jeffery with a lot of love, but a lot of jealousy too. Now, Shane was always jealous of Jeffery, and still is. And Sharon just always had to be a mama. and she still always tries to mama. And Wayne, well, Wayne's just Wayne. He's Wayne. But Jeffrey was born, that small little baby, and what happened in that scenario, they tell me, is this: they didn't have a bassinet, they didn't have a crib for him. And so what they did is they would put a pillow in a drawer, and then they would put Jeffrey on that pillow, or they'd lay that pillow on the floor, and they'd lay Jeffrey on the pillow on that floor. Well, now this is according to my Aunt Dot. Now, they said one night that they were in the house, they'd laid Jeffrey down to bed, all of a sudden they heard Jeffrey start to screaming as much as he could, and as a baby would. They said they woke up, turned the light on, and they said that there was a rat that had Jeffrey by the toe trying to pull him off that pillow. And I could just imagine that time, the shriekness of my Aunt Dot, my Uncle Haskell getting really mad. Of course, the three other ones, Wayne, Sharon, and Shane, they didn't care, didn't know anything about it probably. But I can just imagine Jeffrey being tried to be pulled off by that rat. Well, I think that by that rat trying to pull Jeffrey off, that gave Jeffrey a lot of strength in his life. You see, Jeffrey wasn't afraid of anything. He didn't have, he had fears, like we all have fears, but Jeffrey was a daredevil. And as Jeffrey went through life, things that confronted him in life, he took them like a man. I want to share with you a couple of places in just a moment and talk a little bit more about some things in his life. So I hope that you'll enjoy this time remembering a cousin that I loved, Jeffery Lane Hann. This is Idalia Elementary School. Today it's Idalia Head Start program. But this is exactly where Jeffrey started his schooling at in his elementary time. He came to this school, and just to be honest with you, Jeffrey never liked school. Never at all. In fact, Jeffrey would sometimes be poked at and made fun of by some other people in classes because he maybe wasn't just as smart as the rest of them. But you know what? Jeffrey never really let that bother him because he continued on with his education. He tried to make things as best as he could in his life, and he made it through elementary school just fine. And in fact, some of Jeffrey's longtime childhood friends came from this very school right here. And Jeffrey thought a lot about education, and in fact, he encouraged that among his nieces and nephews. The story is told that when his nieces and nephews would get ready to go to school, that they would all meet down around the shack and early in the morning, and Jeffrey would make them grilled cheese sandwiches and get them some things ready for school. Now, they were doing that, and some of them thought, well, he was just trying to be bossy. Really, what Jeffrey was doing was he was making sure that they had a meal and they were being looked out after every day. You see, Jeffrey had a caring heart, and he cared about people. And you can mess with anybody in his family, but don't you mess with his nieces and his nephews, and definitely don't mess with those other children that are there too. Jeffrey had a huge desire and a huge love for children all around, and he always let that be known. He always, if you were in a place, going out someplace to eat or someplace like that, or maybe you were having a family gathering, he didn't understand why the grown people had to go first, or that the children had to lag behind. You see, we were raised a little bit different. We were raised that the children would get their portions and the moms and dads would take their food last. I'm thankful for good raising like that. And I'm thankful that Jeffrey let that continue on in his life and let that be shown throughout his life, wherever that he was. If there's a small child around, oh, Jeffrey would take care of him. He didn't have a lot to give. He never did have a lot to give. But whatever he had, Jeffrey would make sure that someone could have that, and especially when it came to children. I come out here to our old high school stomping grounds. You see, when it came time to start looking at our teenage years, you see, Jeffrey and I both went to the same school together during the night from about 1976 to our graduating year of 1978. We went to school here at Talladega Academy. Now, I came out here to the grounds today, and I'm locked out. I guess, of course, the school is no longer here. But for those special 3 years of 76, 77, and 78, there's a lot of fun that took place here at the academy. We made a lot of friends. We had a lot of fun together. And we continued on in education. But like I've already said, Jeffrey didn't care much for education, but he knew he had to have it. And he knew he had to do what he could get. But there was one thing that Jeffrey did like. Jeffrey loved sports. Now, he loved NASCAR racing, he loved football, and he loved basketball, and he loved just about any sport you could talk to him about, and Jeffrey would know a lot about that sport. But Jeffrey really, really loved football. In fact, he played 3 years here at Talladega Academy. In fact, he played on that very field right there. And it's nice coming back and looking at that field after all these years and still seeing that there's a field there, even when the school is gone. But, this is where we made a lot of our friends. It's where we made a lot of mistakes. It's where we were rowdy, and it's where we cried when we lost classmates. And today, that Talladega Academy class of 1978 has lost one of their classmates. And it hurts because there was 24 in our graduating class. Would have been 25, except our senior year we lost a young lady named Debbie Hovis. But now and then we've lost Jeffrey as another one of those classmates, and our class size shrinks. But Talladega Academy had a lot to offer. Had a lot of fun here. Everything from dress-up days to sporting events on the baseball field and on the football field. The story is told that my Aunt Dot got a phone call one day from the school here and said, "We need you to come and get Jeffrey." And she said, "Well, just send him on home if he's being bad." And she says, "You don't understand. He's chasing a boy around campus." And she says, "Well, just stop him and make him quit." She goes, "He's afraid that this boy is going to get his position on the football team, so he's chasing him down and trying to get onto him." And Aunt Dot just said, "Well, just stop him. It's not that hard to stop him." The person said, "Miss Hann, you don't understand. Jeffrey is chasing him in the car around the football field." And sure enough, you went outside and you could see Jeffrey riding around on the football field, which he shouldn't have been doing to begin with, but he was chasing the person around. That's just the way Jeffrey was. Now, was he mad? Nah, Jeffrey wasn't mad, but he sure wanted to make sure nobody got his place on the football field. A lot of our classmates from Talladega Academy may be watching this, and so we thank you for sharing your love and your sympathy at this time. And just remember, that we have, all of us, when we lose somebody that's close to us and close to our heart, it hurts. It hurts deeply. But it's really good that no matter how miles may separate you, how time may separate you, there are still those things that bring you close together. And I'm so thankful that this school here, Talladega Academy, was a part of Jeffrey's life, because it brought a large group of people together. Actually, it's a very, very small group. And it helped us to understand what love was about, what caring for people was about. So I'm thankful we had this opportunity together during those days. How can you be from Talladega, Alabama and not enjoy racing? Well, Jeffrey not only enjoyed the sport of NASCAR racing, but Jeffrey also was able to work here at the raceway for a number of years. In fact, he worked on one of the crews that would go around and repair the catch fencing and just do general maintenance around the racetrack. And it must have been a thrilling job for him. In fact, some of his fellow co-workers that worked with him even said that, they used to call him Chief. Now, I don't know what he was. Maybe he was just an ordinary worker, but I can tell you right now that in anything that Jeffrey did, Jeffrey had put his whole heart into it, with all of his heart that's there. Now, Jeffrey was a hard worker, not here at the racetrack, but Jeffrey was a hard worker at other places too. But anywhere that Jeffrey worked, people loved him. And Jeffrey genuinely loved the people that was around him. After owning a couple of businesses, my Uncle Haskell had a service station back over on Stenley Road. He decided one day that he would build a shack and a barbecue place for my Aunt Dot. And so the shack came around in 1983. Well, they needed a good cook for the shack. Well, the best cook that they could find was Jeffrey. And this establishment was Jeffrey's home for years, literally since 1983 when they started the business. Jeffrey would get up, he would cut the wood, he would start the fire, he would cook the barbecue, he'd cook the ribs, and he made this his home. It wasn't just a business, it was his home. It was a part of it. It was a family business. I mean, everybody had a part in it. Sharon and Shane and Wayne all worked. Now, Wayne had come out and did a few things, but after Aunt Dot passed away and Sharon took over the business, there was no question that Jeffrey would still be working here. And Jeffrey, again, would work daily. He would get up in the morning, he'd get the fire started, and he would get out and he would cook the barbecue and he'd cook the ribs. Now, Jeffrey was peculiar about things too. You know, he would come in and Sharon would say, I've got A, B, C, and D. And Jeffrey would always remind her, say, but do you have an E? In other words, do you have something like onions to go on everything too? That was just Jeffrey, and no other way to put that there. But this place Jeffrey loved. And then when Jeffrey would come out from there and would come in and sit at these booths and he would meet with people, it became part of him. Jeffrey also had a love and a desire for the fire department, which is right across the road from here at the shack. He worked with the volunteer fire department for several years and many years. But Jeffrey loved the volunteer fire department. He loved everything about the people that was there. In fact, I was speaking to someone just a little while ago and said they used to eat breakfast with him there over at the fire department once a month, and they'll be missing him being around there. But the shack was Jeffrey's home. It was because it's where he met a lot of family. And I'm talking about friends and family. Oh, there were other places that Jeffrey frequented and was a part of, and he had a friendship among all the people that were there. But when it all boils down to it, this place here, the shack, was Jeffrey's home. This place will be a little bit different now that he's gone. Now, we'll still have good barbecue, we'll still have good cooking, and a lot of good things going on. But here at the shack, Jeffrey's going to be missed. Just like Aunt Dot is missed, and he's been gone for many, many years. Now a second one is gone, and that being Jeffrey. So we're thankful for the people that have patronized this place and been a part of this place, and all the people that's come a part of here and have loved Jeffrey through all this time. And the family thanks you, and we pray that the family will be comforted, and thank you for helping comfort the family during this tough time at this time. Thank you. I'm standing here at the old home place where Wayne and Sharon and Shane and Jeffrey were raised. The old home place burned down a long time ago before Uncle Haskell built a new home that was up on top of the hill over here on the opposite side of it here. But this is kind of like the place that we remember. And this is the place that Wayne and Sharon and Shane and Jeffrey would all remember, because this is where they grew up. It's where they had a fire in that old fireplace over there, and everything else was here. Now the rocks had been moved in since then, but you know, this was the home place. This was the place that we played. This was the place that we ran around outside. This was the place that it was at nighttime that everybody had a big time over here. It's where we would gather sometimes for school functions. It's where we would come, us cousins would come and spend the night with Aunt Dot and Uncle Haskell, and you know, it was always an exciting time to be around them, because Aunt Dot and Uncle Haskell could spoil you pretty good. And you know, it was kind of like a joy to get to come down and spend some time with them. But it was a lot more fun to even be with the cousins. There's a couple of lakes out here, and on the property, and on these lakes here, there's a story that I remember, because you see, Jeffrey loved fishing, and Jeffrey loved fishing as much as anybody else. And I can't tell you, I can't tell you the number of times that maybe he and I went, or maybe he and Russell might have went fishing, and some of the others might have went fishing with him. But you know, Jeffrey always liked fishing. But Uncle Haskell built these two catfish ponds out here, and Jeffrey and I are out here fishing one day, and we're just wheeling away at stuff and trying to catch fish and stuff. And all of a sudden I reared back and I slung my line out there, and next thing I know I felt a tug on it. And the thing about it was the tug didn't come from the water. The tug came from behind me. And I looked, and I had hooked Jeffrey. Not only had I hooked Jeffrey, I had hooked Jeffrey in the earlobe. And I tell people all the time, well, I guess I must have been the first one to ever pierce Jeffrey's ear. But anyhow, we pierced him. Interesting, Jeffrey had this strange way of just no pain about him. And I don't know where that came from. Jeffrey could endure about any type of pain that was out there. When we were kids, again, this goes back. Jeffrey would do some things that were strange, like he would take his arm and he'd pull the skin up, and he would take like a needle and he would just run it through it and, like a safety pin, and clasp it through it and say, look, see what I've done? And of course everybody around us, you're just kind of cringing at everything that would be done, and Jeffrey would be sitting there going, yeah, like, watch what I'm doing now. Jeffrey was just that way. He didn't have much pain. I think that some of that happened out on the football field too, because he could take a lick like nobody else, gets up and walks off, and he could also give a lick and hurt somebody pretty heavily when he wanted to. He had to watch what his strength was sometimes. But I think about the home place. The home place wasn't always good. It had its ups and downs, just like any family did. But you see, I think it's very important to remember this, that family stays together. Through some of the toughest times between my Uncle Haskell and my Aunt Dot, the four children sometimes had to rally together as a family. And as I said in the opening, everybody kind of had their own place. You know, Wayne felt like he had to be the man of the house, and Sharon was always the mama, the boss. Still is the mama, the boss. Shane, you're just Shane. No, Shane offered a lot of love and compassion. And Jeffrey? Well, Jeffrey was the light of the house. He was the joy. Because sometimes if Jeffrey didn't understand it, he'd just flat out tell you. You see, Jeffrey sometimes would just say, you know, will something trouble be going on? Jeffrey just look at you and go, that's stupid. Why are we doing that? Or why do we do something a certain way? But that family has held its bond together for a long time. And the reason they've held that bond together is because of family. Because of who they are. And because of how they were raised. And the fact that they knew what to do and how to keep a family together. They've instilled that into their children. And I hope that that will continue on through their generations as well. As we know, Jeffrey never married. Jeffrey never had any children of his own. But Jeffrey did care about family. Jeffrey spent a couple of years in a nursing home when his health got declined, when he was about 51 or 52. And when his health was declining, they saw the need of putting him into a nursing home to help take care of him. And it would never fail that whenever you would go and visit Jeffrey, Jeffrey would ask you, how's your family doing? For me, it would be primarily, how's Aunt Dean? Is Aunt Dean doing well? How is Uncle Jerry doing okay? He cared about Aunt Daisy and Uncle Ernest and family, Uncle Durrell and all those others. Jeffrey had a deep compassion for them. Needless to say, when Uncle Haskell died, there was a huge, huge pain in the heart of Jeffrey, a loss that was there. But also, he continued on. He'd made a promise to his daddy, I'm going to take care of my mama. And he did, in only way that Jeffrey knew how. And that's by being Jeffrey. He loved his mom with all his heart, and when Aunt Dot had cancer and eventually she passed away, I remember at her funeral that we were all at the viewing, and at the end of the funeral, Jeffrey was the last one to walk away from his mom before they closed the casket. He asked me to go up there with him, so I walked up there with him and he took his mom's hand, and he knew all the hard times that they had gone through in their life. Some of those struggles were really tough. But Jeffrey took his mama's hand, and he took a crumpled up $1 bill, and he rolled that dollar bill into his mama's hand, and he told her, he says, "Mama, you won't go home broke. You won't go to heaven without anything." That's the Jeffrey way. In talking with Sharon and Shane and Wayne and others, when Jeffrey, when his things were being found, and they got his wallet out of the car and stuff like that. They found his insurance cards and they found his driver's license. But inside of his wallet was a penny. And I can't help but think that what came through my heart at that time, and what rolled through my mind, was the very, very thing that he had told his mom when she had passed away. "Jeffrey, you won't go home broke. In fact, Jeffrey, you've gone home with a ton of riches." You see, the riches is not the money that you have and the material things that we have in our life. The things that you have in your life are the very things that Jeffrey shared with a lot of people. Compassion, unconditional love, trust, and caring. Those are the qualities that I saw in Jeffrey. Those are the qualities that I've seen him pass through all his entire life. Not worrying about what side of the track you came from, what type of clothes that you wore, whether or not you were an Alabama fan or whether or not you were an Auburn fan. Well, let's go back on that one for a second here. Auburn fans, you better just wave that one off. No. Jeffrey loved unconditionally. In talking with the family, I asked him, "Do you know of any enemies that Jeffrey had?" And they said, "Not really. Or if he ever had one, it didn't stay an enemy very long. Oh, we, like all people, have our ups and downs." But I think Jeffrey had a special ability to have a kind, compassionate, caring heart. I wish that a lot more of us could be just like him. So we celebrate that today. We celebrate family. In talking with Wayne and Sharon and Shane, I asked them the question, what is it that you're going to miss the most about Jeffrey? And I think it boils down to this here. It wasn't the shelter that was here, even though that's where it housed them. It wasn't the lakes that surround. It was the family. And as Shane said, I'm just going to miss the fourth being gone. I get it. It's an incompleteness. It's an emptiness. Sharon says, I'm just going to miss Jeffrey being Jeffrey. Walking into my house and saying, hey, look, I've got some laundry. Now, it doesn't matter when this laundry gets done, but I'll be back tomorrow to pick it up. That's just like Jeffrey. And by the way, he probably wanted it delivered. But I think all of them are not just going to miss Jeffrey the brother. I think they're going to miss Jeffrey the friend. And that's what I think you and I are going to miss. We're going to miss Jeffrey the friend. A lot of you know that Jeffrey, for a couple of years, had to live in a nursing home because of his health and of some situations that was going on in his life that weren't very, very good. And because of that, when Jeffrey left home, or left out of the nursing home, his health got better, and things were just going so much better for him that he was able to leave the nursing home and able to get out of there. Well, he didn't have the money for a structure or anything like that, and so he lived for a small time over in Talladega at a couple of apartments in that area, and then he got enough money to get this motorhome and pull this motorhome back into this place right here. And so he pulled this motorhome back to his mom's, next to his mom's place here. And it's rather interesting. In talking with the family, Jeffrey, after just moving in here weeks ago, by the way, I think he tried to use that blue tarp right there to make a sunroom, and I think he had it stretched out over a large distance right here. It really just didn't work very well. But you know Jeffrey can be an innovator of anything, and so he was going to make it a sunroom. But in talking with Sharon and Wayne and Shane, Jeffrey was just happy to be home, back to the place where his mom was when she passed, back to where his brothers and sisters live. As I said, Jeffrey was just happy to be home. And when I think about that today, I think about, you know, what lies in store for those of us that left and remain. Now, I do preaching. I teach young people, and I get to be around a lot of them and get to encourage them. But what happened in Jeffrey's life is what happens to every one of us. We all are going to pass away from this life. And all of us in our life are going to go home someday. And it's important for us to be faithful to God. Sharon handed me Jeffrey's Bible recently, and she says, "You've got to look at this Bible." And it was a fairly new Bible that he had. He says, "I've got to do my Bible study. I got to do my Bible study." And so when she opened up his Bible, there was a picture of Aunt Dot in that Bible. And when it opened it up to the book of Job. Now, those of us that know that Job is spelled J-O-B, that being the name of the individual, Sharon couldn't help but think, you know, I will guarantee you that Jeffrey saw that and he said J-O-B, job. And I've got to read this book. I've got to read this in order to teach me how to get a job. Yeah, you just can't help but laugh to know about that with Jeffrey. He would have to read that. But Jeffrey also knew that he had to read that Bible to get close to God. And he loved God and he loved Jesus. And I'm so thankful that he did. And I'm quite sure that he would tell other people, you need to know who God is and you need to know who Jesus is. Why? Because you want to go home someday. You want to go home. I'm glad my cousin got to come home to be next to his family. I'm glad that his last days were filled with joy, a lot of laughter. A lot of the pain that had been in their life had subsided quite a bit. I'm glad that there was joy found within that family. And it's my prayer that there'll be much more joy that'll be brought into that family. And that they'll remain closer together during these tough and trying times. I want to thank you for watching this video with us at this time and remembering the life of a good cousin. Jeffrey was a fantastic guy. There's no questions about that. By all of you being here at this time and sharing your love with the family, we thank you so much for being here. I'd be amiss if I didn't thank you on behalf of all of our family on the side, but especially for Wayne and Sharon and Shane. Thank you so much for coming here to support them. But where do we go? Cousins are pretty neat. Family's pretty neat. I'm thankful that I'm part of a family that loves each other, cares for each other, longs to be with each other. I'm thankful for that I'm part of a family that works through trials and tribulations together and still comes out loving one another. I'm thankful that I've got cousins that I've grew up with, and I could go through and name all 9 of them on one side. But I really thank so much for the opportunity to grow up with a cousin like Jeffrey, who showed me some things in life that I use today, even in my ministry. And I'm thankful that you got to know Jeffery Hann. So God bless you. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this special day with us as we've celebrated the life of Jeffery Hann. Now go out and make a difference in the world. I believe Jeffrey did.